야 다치로 넘어서 강가 다시 될래. 드네 강가 되고도 끼고야 보여요.
First of all, to all of my Dharma friends, greetings, Tashi Dele. I hope that you are well and I hope that you are happy.
아니 다 들이 가정한 줄 모르겠네. 다 예시자 가시요아래 뒤눈을 다 들이 아니 다 가정한 마다 물리기 자치 뭐 연바도 생정 오르지 디디디디 진로 차와레스.
So we will be continuing today with the sequence of 20 or a little over 20 Lamrim, stages of the path meditations. Last time we spoke about the preciousness of the human rebirth, the human body, and we also covered topics like the potential of the mind.
다 들이 뒤눈을 다 내서 가리는 좋아하는 거 하는 지로와 처음부터 비고 스트레스.
And so today, whether we're at number 4 or number 5, Geshe said he's not sure, but the topic he is sure. Today we will be speaking about death and impermanence.
아니 처음부터 비네스 론소 다 내서 지메키네 론소 해 대해서 계산하고 동거했더니 얘네끼는 처음부터 비네스 때 소야 보스프게 요토바 이나 다 거의 요다 가리 이나요 봐. 니까지를 주주전화야지도 아니 다 뭐지 레레로 들어가겠네 기본이 막 소화시 된다 이거 토기 알았어.
So in terms of today's topic, which is death and impermanence, especially perhaps for people who are not so experienced or haven't heard this before, it might seem like a strange topic to think about, like something a little bit heavy. But the thing here is that actually, if we develop a real feeling and understanding for this topic of death and impermanence, then what this will do is it will give us a great capacity to be able to diminish the problems of samsara that we encounter. It will even allow us to be more relaxed people.
아니 대 거러기 내서 시소나 아니 처음부터 내서 여보 시소나 대 말에 engel 아니 밀리자 첨보대 이제 노벨이 줄 하도 대자 첨보 당뇨다 강가를 보게 좋더라 대자 첨보대 출로만도 수쇼 여보지는 내가 여보지야.
And in addition, if we really comprehend this topic of death and impermanence, if we really know this, it will help us to fully appreciate, connected with the last topic, this human rebirth, which is more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. With the comprehension of the topic of death and impermanence, then we will be determined not to waste that precious opportunity.
And so
then, in terms of speaking about contemplating or meditating on the topics of death and impermanence, we could speak about the coarse aspect of death and impermanence.
아니 농에 내세를 시 내세 옛날에 못아봐 라바게 내세 시 대래 못아봐 참먹게 내세 갈래 로소나 아니 땅적은 것도 해야 간가 하더니 과야게 내세 주는 거 알았어.
And so first we begin by an understanding of the coarser aspects of impermanence, of outer and inner things. And then on that basis, we develop an understanding of the more subtle aspects of impermanence. 참모대로.
야. 그래서
Jesus.
달라마 정갑이 로르거는라요. 단전이가 첼라로메 바 예라콤이 첸데 노제도 세니 아니 밀리자 첨보더니 토니에가와 대체와 저와 어따 때때 뭐메 바 대니데 여보 소와시소나 기기자 체수진 노지더니 소소로 버려티노 그래.
So Geshe is quoting a verse from Lama Tsongkhapa where he talks about a precious human rebirth with all of the freedoms and richnesses. He mentions that such a human rebirth is something that is rare, difficult to find, and also has great meaning. It is said that if one can develop a determination of the preciousness of this, then that awareness of the precious human rebirth and its rarity will be like the very best kind of teacher.
그래서 어다 디디치든지 예산에 어다 야지워된 대화 요는 간도 노지부게 하는 지다 지워될 단일한테 파 야도 밤에 와서 했더니 요아래.
So that's just kind of a brief recap of that topic. And so Geshe said if you want to hear more extensive presentations of these topics, then you are very welcome to listen to his more extensive classes, which we usually have on Sundays.
어다 거기서는 만도 예스디지.
And so now we will turn to meditation on this week's topic.
어다 소소서
So wherever you are sitting, let's just take a moment to put the mind and the body into a relaxed state. So as we settle the mind, it's just like setting a glass of water with a lot of particles or sand down, and all the sand and the particles drift to the bottom. Similarly, when we settle our mind, then it will become clear like that water, allowing us to perceive all objects. So let's turn to this meditation on impermanence, and let's meditate on how we perceive the container of the outer world. We see this world with its mountains, forests, and so forth. When we look at them, it seems that they are stable, that they are always continuing in the same way. And when we look at that, what kind of feeling is arising in the mind? Similarly, if we turn the attention to ourselves and we think of ourselves last year and this year, this ignorance grasping at the self gives us the impression that that version of ourselves from last year and the version of ourselves now is the same. That way of thinking, or perhaps we could say that way of seeing, it is something that is fundamentally not correct. So, how is it really like? What is the real way that things are? Well, if we think of a tree, we first think about a seed in the ground that first brings forth a sprout. Then slowly, slowly, the tree grows more and more leaves come out, and it becomes very beautiful. As the tree continues to grow and thrive, there may be flowers or beautiful fruits on it as well. Slowly, as the tree ages, the leaves begin to fall off. It begins less and less capable of producing fruit. The fruit becomes poor quality, and so forth. And just similar to that tree, if we think about our own experience, there is that manifestation when we are just born.
Tene ya te zi chimbo chani ha levi tene li kanga tembo rabo chido ya bu chikine zi yares.
And then as we grow, we reach our prime where the body seems very stable, very strong, and so forth.
Tene kale tangi shidu tulando wa noji kale chawa mata piknes got kale chawa yung yares.
But then eventually, just as that tree fades and becomes old and withers, then similarly, our body becomes impacted by impermanence and death.
Te koro matse koi rongji sanamade matse chashin rawo jire mado. Ani yadaki mares. Matse ro tu jire mado koi rongji jire mado. Te yame bachi mares.
So this is just the nature of samsara. This is the way that the body goes. There is nothing kind of exceptional about that. It's the way things are.
Tende nyatse te koi kange cheshu, noda cheshu ji za. Te malebi nyele tandani ju te maruso. Ani mali za chimo suzo labala yuwa iza. Kadi yina ngene china kibo tsawa yotogres.
And because this is the situation of samsara, this reality of death and impermanence, then before death comes, while we have this human rebirth in our hand, we want to make it something valuable.
Matseno kange yenda kari yina yo tele tawa yina tende chuchu chenpo chuchu chaya do chuchu mewa chaya te age nyatse ji yares.
Also, if we think about this eventual problem that we'll face of death, it gives us a very realistic view. If we think about how serious that problem is, then the little inconveniences, the minor things we endure, they won't seem so important. We'll have perspective.
Chendel halevi chapa chenpo chini tsawa ngen bado. Tendega halevi tsaga tsaga zo kaya mandi kangan jwaan roi rongji matabi rongji jires.
For the things that we're attached to in this life, when difficult emotions arise, when we exaggerate and grasp onto those things, we'll see that there's really no point to doing that because everything will fade in light of an impermanence and death.
Nodo ngenpa karu ina jwaan roi rongji matabi rongji jire mata kwa. Tembo ngaru somo noji jimares.
And similarly, the difficult emotions, the false projections that we have, they too are subject to impermanence. They're in a state of flux and will fade away because they are not the way things really are.
Chawama topa ngine tsachi mo tsuga yo te matre malepi nyela senji te kari yina yo do toya kokachi mo te malepi ngene tende dui sopa chika.
If I really respect and see this topic of death and impermanence as something that is important, then before I reach that difficult time, I must be determined that I can develop positive mental qualities and I will definitely bring forth those positive mental qualities.
Chawama topa la yo sosuga yo poche toba ina rungo toba jiyo kwa rita te hale ya gane tsuji.
And if I am able to reach the ultimate positive mental qualities, then through that I will be able to overcome death and impermanence.
이제 노을이 졸라 비자라 자지 뭐 대자지 뭐대 거의 자소리 두이 드진다고 들이 저 저마다 마트는 알아서 다대 땡보지네 배시하고 또이
So this wish-fulfilling jewel-like human rebirth, which was like a boat which will allow us to cross the vast ocean of samsara to liberation, to freedom, I will definitely use this wisely in the instant that I have it, before death and impermanence come.
Yeah,
So we'll pause it there.
yes, what the lichire sakosra sendel pa sendel chapi chapa shemba dropo de pakaya tela danjoni ka wa tni tsem do pa nimbo de gojaba yina tni tela tni sendel chapi chapa thamo de pakwa to gres what the sugiares.
So Geshe is just explaining that in terms of the attachment or the grasping to this life,
ya sendel chapi chapa chapa de ngong ko mo to ya was ta te ani ma chet mali za chenbo yamba to nya ka wa to tni zong ji to ani tsem ta pa yamba de ne se ya po chra che sona ani te ko no gres.
So in terms of this exaggerated attachment or grasping at this life, in order to be able to counter this, to stop this, the two most effective contemplations are about the human rebirth with the freedoms and richnesses, as well as the contemplation of death and impermanence.
o da ne se tni ji da chawa ma to ba de ne ka le ka wa zhe yo na o da de ne ka la ko yin yo da kan di ji na de la de ne chu shi ni ba me ba ji so no de ne ki wo ji ni ba sen ji ye de xie to ya le ngang so lo ju de nyo le ya ba che ka ya res.
So if we really see death and impermanence as something heavy, something difficult, then we can think that, okay, well, in light of that, then the other temporary problems, the small problems that I'm experiencing in samsara are not so significant. And because those are relatively small, then before I come to the point of death and impermanence, I will bring forth positive mental qualities.
le yi na yo so so kumba ji bo ja ba no ji ki wo jin ro ta ko ka so so la ba le wa yi za o ta ka se te te bo che.
So if I do that, then when the time of death comes, I can make it so that it is just like moving from one house to another, or one hotel room to another. So thinking of those benefits, then please cultivate happily.
o da di ji te ji res ya ya
So that was a brief presentation of this topic.
ya de ji.
Thanks.